Pregame.com.
Broncos plus 13.5 at New England, divisional NFL playoffs. Tebow time. All right, so let's do this. For the longtime viewers, they know we're going to be digging into Tebow, and we'll do that in overtime because we want to get the pick out there first. But wait, you can wait and be sure we're going to get into that. And actually, Marco had a tweet that I really want to dig into, and it's not going to be a pleasant experience for you. But let's get to the game. This game confuses the heck out of me in the following way. On one hand, I'm thinking I'm not crazy to bet against it. That's the thing. If this line's 9.5, I'm thinking, all right, there's been an overreaction, Tebow. But I look at this line, I think it's right. At 14.5, it's hard for me to get. I certainly am starting to lean dog. At 13.5, I can't imagine there's a lot of value on the dog in my handicap. So this is a game, and I look at the total, and I think Tebow is going to score more. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. But when you're in your 50s, I don't see where the value is. I'll go over 44. I'd go over it and love it. So, but you've got a kind of a alternative approach to this game.
Well, I think that this game, because there is so much hype about it in and it's playoffs, and you know how we always talk about playoff time, the lines are tighter than any other time of the season. Vegas Runner.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Well, with this statement, and you've heard Vegas Runner talk about it, that
you're saying Vegas Runner, like if he says, there's no way I can buck that.
Well, he's our guy that is in the trenches with the sports books.
Fair enough.
And how many times have you heard him say during the playoff time that some of the houses will limit teaser action on the playoff games because there's too much exposure for them. And I think
that's because of the tightness of the line?
With that extra 7 points, swinging that line back and forth. And I think this is one of those games where I think the teaser is the best value for you to play this game.
All right, so
and I'm going to make a case both directions.
And I'm interested to hear, but let's define something here. To me, I think that if the NFL was about knowing something about the teams that the average person doesn't or the market doesn't, I think the NFL has the most transparency or depth of reporting. I think it's harder to know something about it. I mean, imagine how many people, on ESPN are just talking about, former quarterbacks. They're looking at the 22 wide film at the NFL headquarters. I mean, everything is picked over 18 times. I think it's hard to know something someone else doesn't. But because the public is betting it so much, I think the NFL is the opportunity for public misperception to be where you gain value, is the public actually does affect the line in the NFL. Thus, if they're wrong, you can find value. Now, since the public gets more involved in the playoffs and ultimately the most involved in the Super Bowl, then it seems like the going against public misperception in the playoffs is even more of an opportunity than it is during the NFL regular season. That said, I would question the tightness of the line. It doesn't mean that there isn't value on these teasers, so make your case.
Well, the situation we have here with Denver is what I'm looking at right now as we speak, and we're taping on Wednesday, the line's sitting at 13.5, okay? There are a couple places that are 14. And I think that come Sunday, it's going to be 14.
Yeah, maybe not. But, I heard the same thing about Pittsburgh's going to get to 10. Mm-hmm. I mean, the question is this. Right now, if you look at Sportsbook Spy, where you can get the bet percents on every game, it is over 60% on Denver right now. Now, early action, I don't trust it till game day a ton. But the idea that everyone's just going to bet against Tebow and lay 2 touchdowns, I think it's possible, but I think it's just as possible the wise guys hit this thing and it's 12, and I think it's also possible that it's 50-50 action the rest of the week and it closes 13.5.
It very well could. What I'm going to say is with the teaser, if you like New England, and we can make a great case for the New England because, we can go to the whole thing. Denver shot their load last week, so to speak, to win 2 playoff games in a row. The adjustments.
2 playoff games. They lost the
Well, if they won last week, they couldn't come and win 2 games in a row. A lot of teams that, like Seattle last year. Last week on podcast and radio shows I did compare Denver to the Seattle Seahawks from last year. They were the team in the playoffs that nobody thought should be there. They were, looked down upon because Denver limped in, losing the last 3 games the way they did. Seattle was a sub-500 team. Remember how the talk shows last year talked about Seattle. They ended up beating the Saints. And what did they do? The next week, they went on the road and played in Chicago, and Chicago beat them. Very similar situation here with Denver. The New England Patriots, their offense, this is a thing that if you look at what Pittsburgh did last week, and there's 2 things that I took away from last week's game. Denver, give John Fox credit for doing what Pittsburgh was giving him. He had the cojones to go ahead and make a game plan to go and throw the ball deep on first down, and when he was catching Pittsburgh in man-to-man coverage. You follow the Steelers as close as I do. We know those teams inside and out. That's not the way Pittsburgh plays defense. They're not a team that likes to put their guys out on an island. And Pittsburgh got caught into the hype of Tebow and changed their game plan to do what everybody else was doing, set everybody in the box, make them beat you throwing, and they did. Now, this week there's going to be adjustments. New England is not going to do that. They're going to see that Tebow is capable of throwing the ball deep. So they're going to have to play some straight defense. That's going to let the teams move the ball. But if
let the teams move the ball.
Both teams will be moving the ball in this game. New England.
You're saying New England's moving the ball no matter what. Okay, go ahead.
Because the second part of the takeaway last week, as good as Denver played, Pittsburgh was totally banged up, totally on offense. You got a hobbled Ben. You've got, backup running backs. You've got the offensive line that was put together with Band-Aids last week and suffered more injuries during the game. And yet they moved the ball on Denver last week. What does a healthy Brady do this week in a rested New England offense?
Okay, so far, quite frankly, and I try to call it like I see him, I'm not hearing anything new. So I'm listening, and let's get to the new stuff. Brady's good.
Mm-hmm.
Denver played well last week. Part of it was schematically the Pittsburgh pressed at the corner, and Tebow came through.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone knows this. So now what?
Well, again, it's a game of adjustments. Now, can Denver...
But we're not asking questions. We're trying to answer
Well, we're
questions.
trying to answer. And I say Denver's not going to have the success that they had last week moving the ball.
But as a 14-point favorite, or as a 13.5-point underdog, do you need that success? I mean, if the question is who's supposed to win this game, that's an easy answer.
That's why I think there's value either side on this teaser. Take the 7-point teaser sitting at 13.5 and get New England under the touchdown. Get it to 6.5. You're making it a one-score game. I think New England is very good in that situation. I also think on the same way...
But that's the thing. Every teaser is good. If you give 7 points or 6 points to any team, that should look attractive.
But
if not, you should go back and bet the other side on the straight bet.
Absolutely. With the situation being here, the Denver team, I just don't see them going into New England and winning. And if New England's going to win, I think they win by 7. But do I want to let...
If New England wins, you think they win by 7?
But
you're saying you don't see any scenario New England blows them out?
Oh, absolutely. I do see scenarios that they can do it. But because of the problems that the New England defense has had all year, this is a type of team that you can't count on for total blowout separation. And that's why I think there's as much value on the other side of waiting till you see the 14 if you want to take Denver. Use the 7-point teaser and get your 3 scores. Get it to 21.
So let's talk about this conceptually first, which is the paradox, I guess, that if the bookmakers become too good, they make themselves vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Because, for example, if you knew for a fact the bookmakers were going to be exactly correct on a game, then you could, like you said, tease both ways and make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So on one hand, that's an interesting concept. What you're saying is, in your opinion, and based on what you gather from what VR is saying, in general, the NFL playoff lines are tighter. I'm going to maybe, if I have the time, I'm going to do a study on that because I can look at the database. It won't be much of a challenge to do that. But then number 2, what you're saying is this is a game that you think this line is really pretty much right on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see the Patriots' defense isn't good enough to get, as you call it, separation, which is a great term for it, I think. And on the other hand, you think Denver is not good enough to either win the game or even keep it super close.
Right.
All right. Interesting. So I don't think there's probably a huge positive. First of all, when you get into 7-point teases and you're laying 130, that becomes almost automatically a recreational play. And maybe that's what we're talking about here, because it is a NFL, there's going to be 30 college or maybe more college basketball games on Saturday. And then there's...
It'll be more than 30.
Yeah.
Trust me, I spend all Friday night looking at
a
them.
lot of these games, but everyone's fixated on these playoff games. And as a investor, as a professional bettor, you can't do that. As a recreational bettor, you can. So what are the mechanics in this case? Are you able, I've never done this, so I'm going to sound uninformed, but I guess I'll be candid. Sometimes I don't know everything. Always I don't know everything. Can you bet both sides of the same teaser on the same teaser?
I don't believe you can do that. That wouldn't make sense for me. I wouldn't do that. If I'm going to play...
Well, in fact...
The way I'm going to attack the game...
I don't think you can, because there's going to be a type of correlation there.
Right.
So now I think it through, it wouldn't make sense. So how would you play both sides?
What I would do is, first of all, of the two
Would
sides...
you play both, or would you tell the audience, look out in the camera and say, listen, whichever way you're leaning, maybe tease it that way, or are you saying actually play both?
What I'm going to do, honestly, is I'm going to play the New England down stronger. Let's say, for the sake of argument, and I don't want to use this.
But you can't have a one-team teaser.
No, but I'm going to have other team in it. Which the team that I'm going to use it in is going to be my video best bet this week, because I like them straight. I like them straight, and then I'm obviously going to tease them too. But I would take New England, for the sake of argument, say for 2 units, down to 6.5 and tease them with the other team. And for 1 unit, I'm going to tease Denver plus the points with my other team.
Now, are you going to tease Denver if it doesn't get to 14?
No, I need it to be 14. I want 21 points. I don't want anything less than 21.
And looking out there is you're teasing, no, not teasing the teaser, but teasing your video best bet. You can get that at pregame.tv. Okay, now let's think about this a second. I don't think this has been our most well-spoken video.
What can you say about Tebow? You know what?
But here's the thing, though, to make the point. I do think we've touched on a couple of concepts. I think the whole idea of teasers creating vulnerabilities for the books, the tighter the line is an interesting concept. And I also think the idea, and we talk about this a lot, guys, is recreational betting is fine as long as you define it as that and you bankroll it as that, just like going to a movie or whatever. That's fine too. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, a couple stats here. One thing about, the Denver, why I'm not full board, just go ahead and take New England. And I said about the separation with the defense. New England is as good as they've been. We still see that they give up a lot of points. New England has benefited from turnovers, unbelievably. It's a sick ratio. They have had, since that 4-turnover game that Brady had whenever they played the Giants beat them, since that game, the remaining 8 games, they have only turned the ball over 3 times, New England. They've gotten 20.
Yeah, so the question is, and this becomes the statistical debate, is interceptions are something that actually is significant or it's team specific. Certain teams throw more interceptions, certain teams throw less, certain teams get more interceptions, certain teams get less. Fumbles, most stats guys say are pretty random, though you always hear where this guy fumbles or whatever, but overall it's pretty random. So to me, I'm thinking Brady is a guy that doesn't turn the ball over much. So I would say the fact that they have the low number isn't shocking. The fact that the Patriots are the ball-hawking team now, that's the handicapping question. Is that fluky, or is that the nature of the defense right now?
Yeah, well, part of it is because they score so many points on offense that it puts so many teams behind in their games, and you know how whenever you're behind, you've got to start pressing on offense, and when you're pressing and the defense can pin its ears because you're becoming one-dimensional, that plays into part of the, why they're so good on the turnovers.
Yeah, that's a good point. And my last point about all the teaser stuff, the one thing that causes me to pause in your recommendation is I think that at a certain point, if New England starts to get to that border of separation, where if that's 21 points or whatever, I do think that Tebow, if New England's able to say we don't have to worry about the run as much and get more conventional because they're down 21. My gut feeling is that there's going to be more trouble for Tebow coming back than I think this could be a 45-3 type game.
It definitely very well could be.
More likely than even the typical 14-point. Now, on the other hand, if it is a tight game, has Tebow lost a tight game? Well, I guess he lost that KC game. But in general, if it's a 7-point game with 10 minutes left, I'd much rather have the money line than I would having plus 7.5, because I do feel like if it's tight, Tebow is going to win a higher percentage and he's going to lose.
One of the other reasons why I don't think about them so much with the blowout is there was one key stat in that first meeting that surprised me on the New England Patriots. In that first meeting against the Broncos, they rushed the ball, believe it or not, New England, 36 times. That was the highest rush attempts that they had all year.
But we're back to the old idea that rushing means low score. What was the score of that game?
The score in that game was 41-23. What I'm getting at is that if they do get a lead and they are running the ball, they're shortening the game.
But it didn't happen in that game.
But it stayed with under 21.
Well, but again, the line in that case, the 7-point tees in that case would have brought it to 15.
Yeah.
But, all right, fair enough. All right, guys, so you've got the quote-unquote pick in this case. Now, I'm going to take this because it's gone kind of long, so I'm going to make overtime really short. First, let me say you can go to pregame.tv and see all the videos. Or if you want to have a conversation about this video, you can go to pregamevideos.com. We have a super thread with all of this week's videos right there. All right, here's my question. We can't go too long on this. Here's my question. Tebow did what most people thought he wasn't good. Clearly, it was plus 300. So we can talk all we want about, did you play Broncos on the money line?
No.
So you didn't expect Broncos to
No.
win. He won. And really, he was one of the main reasons they won.
Oh, absolutely.
So I follow your Twitter account, Marco in Vegas, and instead of you saying, Tebow really was better than I thought, or somehow you had a comment that said, see? And I guess viscerally when I saw that first, what could he be saying here? Is this guy should have his tail between his legs? And your response was, see? Or whatever. I told you Ike Taylor wasn't as good as people thought. So your takeaway from that game was that you were right about Ike Taylor, but somehow there was no comment about being wrong about Tebow.
See, here's the thing. I actually even got an email from one of our, a good client.
I notice when you know you're in a bad spot, you look down. You don't look at the camera. You don't look at me. I wish we could just do a close-up right now. Go ahead.
Tebow is mature.
I'm not asking about your opinion of Tebow. I'm asking about that tweet.
Well, I stated that Ike Taylor sucks, and he did.
did I miss the mea culpa tweet about Tebow? I was wrong. Did I miss that one?
He made throws that I didn't expect that he could.
But did I miss that tweet?
I might have hit the send button and didn't go. Sometimes that happens.
We got him red face, guys. See you next week.